Catalina, good evening. Mayra,
Hi,
good evening.
hello, teacher. How are you?
Good. Thanks for waiting.
Okay, teacher, can I talk to you 5 minutes before you start the class?
Yes. Tell.
In Spanish or in English? I don't mind.
Well, as you want, or if you want at the end, I don't know.
No, bueno, te voy a hablar en español para que me rinda.
Okay.
Imagínate que es que tenemos con Alex clase de Theoretical Linguistics 2 también y preciso nos pusieron el encuentro al mismo horario que tú. Entonces estamos con Alex tratando de hablar con la profesora, pero nos comenta que no hay otra posibilidad de cambiar el horario. Entonces Alex en este momento está conectado en la clase de Theoretical, yo estoy conectada pues contigo, pero entonces no sé si nos puedas colaborar, qué podemos hacer, porque la verdad estamos supremamente preocupados porque claramente esto tiene nota y no queremos perder ninguna de las dos materias, consideramos que ambas son realmente importantes. Entonces, pues no sé, me tomo el atrevimiento después de hablar con ver qué podemos hacer.
Okay. What usually happens in those cases is that Jorge Muñoz asks both teachers to allow students to take turns and attend one or the other encounter. So what you have to do is to write an email to Jorge Muñoz. He will write an email to the other teacher and to me so that everything will be written.
Okay.
And what Jorge usually asks the teachers is to allow the students to take turns. So during 1 week, students attend one virtual encounter, and the next week, the students attend the other virtual encounter of the other course.
Okay. But okay, so okay, I'm gonna write then Jorge tomorrow. But is it possible that today you count Alex and me on your encounter, so we don't
Yes,
have like fails? I will talk to Alex, but he's doing theoretical right now for me, so I will do practicum for him. So we
yes,
are
that's
like
not a
divided.
problem. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, just for today till we decide with Jorge what's gonna happen.
All right.
Okay, thank you, teacher. I appreciate a lot your help.
Okay, you are welcome. Good evening, everybody. We're going to
Good evening,
start.
teacher. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Well, we're going to review what we studied last week. Basically, we will focus our attention on the difference between the sequence presentation practice production and task-based learning. So the difference between those two ways of teaching. So we have presentation practice production, which is considered a sequence for teaching. And on the other hand, we have task-based learning. Okay, so I would like you to, any of you, please tell me what you consider is the difference between those two ways to teach. What you remember about presentation practice production? What do teachers usually do to present information, to have students practice, and to have them produce? Any of you? Don't remember? Anybody? What do teachers usually do to present information, to have students practice, and to have them produce?
Teacher, is that the one that the student needs to do something about the real life, like planning that they have? So, for example, I don't know, let's say recycling, and they plan how they will recycle.
Okay, that's PBL.
Ah, that's TBL.
PBL,
Okay.
project base. So the project will be to project-based learning will be to have students think about a solution for a problem or to research about a topic. So you mentioned uh, the idea of think about on ways to recycle, ideas to recycle. So the students will work in groups to come up with ideas or they will research about it. But what about the other two, presentation, practice, production, and task-based learning?
The task-based learning is it like, for example, if I want to do an interview, let's say if I want to do like a task using a certain target language.
Yes. So for example, interview classmates about what? What could be?
Mm, for example, let's say learning a language, like is the class going well by learning a certain language?
Yeah, but what will be that language? Interview their classmates. Students will interview classmates about what? Could be many things, but an example.
Um, mm, like for example, let's say English, teaching English with the learning process of teaching English in adults is different of kids, from kids.
Okay. Um, but okay, that will be more like a project for
Okay, a more a
students
project.
like you. So how to teach or process the difference between teaching adults and children, let's say. Okay, for task-based learning could be interview classmates about their hobbies, let's say. Yes. Mm. So, what type of language do we need for the students to be able to interview their classmates about hobbies? What tense, by instance?
Teacher,
Present.
I don't understand. Okay, you are talking about the tenses that we need to for talking with the students to apply that task-based learning, task-based learning.
Well, for the example that we have right now, which is
Okay,
that at the end of a class, students could be able to interview their classmates about their hobbies.
okay,
So
they must know the past tense
Present.
why past?
because they already have done the things that you have been working with them. So most of the things that we do already passed, and most of the things that they already passed too. So I have to talk in past, and I have to know how to talk in past to share with people about the past tense.
Okay, but if we talk about hobbies, it's something that we usually do, and if it's that
It's
if that
present.
is that yeah, it will be present.
Okay, thank you.
Present simple, and the vocabulary will be, who wants to talk?
Teacher, and me, John, Jairo.
John.
John.
Uh-huh.
Good evening, teacher.
Hello.
Teacher, I would like to give something else about the task-based learning. According to those informations, I would like to say that this method is focused in the real life. For example, if the students are talking about hobbies, they are talking about something happening in their real life. And the principal goal of this task-based learning is to achieve communicative learning.
Uh-huh.
Yes, teacher. This is my
Good.
opinion.
Okay, very good. If we plan a lesson based on task-based learning, so that at the end of the lesson, the students can interview each other and talk about their hobbies. So the students will review the use of present simple and what type of vocabulary they will review.
They,
Perhaps the I like.
Okay, present simple, I like. And the vocabulary will be?
Vocabulary could be export.
Okay, it could be sports.
Food.
they could be to talk about routine.
Okay, but remember that it's hobbies.
Foods, places.
Okay. Okay. So what happens with task base? In task base, I need a context. That's very important. And when I say that context, I mean as an example of how to use the language. In this case, about how to talk of our hobbies, So if I need to give students an example, I need to show them either a conversation written or a paragraph, a written paragraph, or a video. Yes, at the beginning of the sentence, of the beginning of the class. Sorry. So that's to present the language in context. That's very important. If I do that at the beginning, it means that I consider my students can infer the meaning of many words and situations. Yes, if I choose a video of two teenagers talking about their hobbies, so I think as a teacher, if I present that at the beginning of the lesson, I think that my students can use the visual aids that they are watching, the people that are talking, the surrounding, the expressions, the gestures, objects that they watch in the video in order to try to understand what the people are talking about. That's very important. Opposite to that, we have presentation, practice, production. In this sequence, the teacher give more explanations. And that means that teachers can present language without a context. So, for example, the teachers can use flashcards of hobbies or sports at the beginning of a lesson, to introduce the vocabulary. Yes, so I'm not using a context, I'm just using a list of vocabulary to introduce the words. While on task base, I present the complete conversation or situation, and I think my students can infer what is happening in the conversation, like the general idea. Okay,
Teacher, I
so
have a question.
sure, Luis.
Because when I read teachers' roles in practice production sequence, it says that the teacher role during the process is to provide students with a context and always to provide explanation about the grammar in that context. When I read in the yellow page, I call that that you gave us. It says teacher's role during presentation phase is to provide students with a context and to provide explanations about grammar. So, and you told us here that teachers, we don't really need a context. I don't understand those
You are
two
confused with that.
positions. Yes, yes,
Yes,
please, thank you.
so here, this always in presentation practice production, the teacher gives more explanations because the teacher thinks students need to, the teacher needs to provide students with all the information because the teacher is the one who knows the information. In task-based, the idea is that students can make inferences. Imagine that if the students were in a real or in a English-speaking country, students should try to understand or will need to try to understand what is going on without a teacher. Something similar is what the teacher tries to do in TBL, to provide a context and to see if students can understand something. But that is just the first stage. It's just the first stage. While in presentation practice production, the teacher gives more explanations. Probably presents the teacher might present the information in a context that will explain the new words and will say, okay, in this conversation we have hobbies and sports, and here we have a list of hobbies, and here we have a list of sports. Now repeat after me, match the pictures with the corresponding word in Spanish, etc. So the teacher explains everything the students practice.
Okay, thank you, teacher. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Now I understand better, yeah.
All right. Well, here in TBL, the second stage, after presenting the conversation or the video, the second stage is to give students exercises for them to practice the information presented. So, example, if I used a video of two adolescents talking about their hobbies, in the second stage, I will have students match pictures with definitions or match pictures with a word in English. So I will help the students to understand that vocabulary. I start from an example and I help little by little the students learn, understand that information by using those exercises, matching exercises, listen and repeat. Let's say then we have complete the gaps, listen again, other example. So at the end, I can tell the students, now please try to create a conversation in which you talk about your hobbies and then act it out. Well, here I give explanations, and I don't think students can make inferences. In task base is the opposite. I think students can infer information. So in presentation practice production, I can use flashcards, and then I can tell the students, let's say, practice can have a control practice.
Can I say that practice definitions, teacher, with the flashcards? Or is too hard for them?
For example,
I show an image of a house and say, okay, house, what is a house? A house is a place where people live and etc.
okay, no, actually, that's good. You know why? Because you don't know how many courses the students have taken before, or if they watched programs in English, and some of them know. So you might have experienced that some students know more vocabulary than others, or when some students explain the definition of or the meaning of a word, the rest of the class pays more attention because the students learn more from their peers than from the teacher. So if we give the opportunity to the students to tell if they know the answer before I tell them, so I'm giving them more opportunities to learn. They just learn and pay more attention if their classmates speak than if the teacher speaks.
So it's like correcting the mistakes of the teacher, of the student, I mean.
Is giving the students the opportunity to say what they already know. If they don't know anything about the topic or the example that I am uh, showing them, then I will help them with visual aids to understand the information. I will make gestures, drawings. I will use photos. I will write examples. And at the end, if nothing of that works, I will use Spanish. Because in task-based learning, the idea is to have an atmosphere similar to what they will encounter if they were in an English-speaking country. Nobody will use Spanish. So it's to push them to try to understand without using Spanish. But if it's not possible, then the teacher can resort to the mother tongue as the last resource. Okay. Yes.
Teacher, good evening. How are you?
Hello, George.
I got a question, teacher. In task-based learning, we got some grammar explanation in one step or not?
No, we have in step 4, we have a focus on, I'm sorry, here, a focus on grammar, but we shouldn't provide them with an explanation, but with an example. So again here, let's see. So in stage 1, the teacher presents the example. In stage 2, the teacher helps students to understand the example with visual aids. At stage 2 and 3 is to help them understand the example with visual aids, but also the students practice pronunciation of the example. In stage 4, there is a focus on grammar. So let's say that I use a video of a conversation, and in that video, one child asks, "What do you do on Sunday afternoons?" and the other person answers, I like to meet my friends and go to the movies, to go to the movies.
Wait.
Yes, so I will take other examples from the conversation so that the students can fill the gaps, but I'm not telling them what is the structure. So I will have other example like on Saturdays.
What do you like on Saturdays?
For example, so since I have a conversation in a video, here in the grammar stage, what I do is that I have students fill the gaps based on the example I provided. I write this on the board and I have students try to analyze the example and tell me what they think I have to use here to complete the question and what they think I have to write here to complete the sentence.
What do you like on Saturdays?
Yes, because these examples are taken from the same video that I showed at the beginning.
Okay.
And after that, I have students work on different, well, other sentences, maybe not from the video, but similar from, I mean, sentences about hobbies, probably not taken from the video. Yes, but I'm not telling them, okay, the structure for writing a question or for asking a question in present simple is WH, auxiliary.
Present simple.
Yes, I'm not saying that. I'm having students try to infer the structure by providing them with an example. And here I have students try to work on fill the gaps exercises. But if students can't, if it's very difficult for them, after I try several times, then I have to explain and I have to tell them, okay, look, here we have a similarity. Then I will have to make explanations. Here we have a WH, here we will need an auxiliary, here we will need a subject, here we will need a verb, and this is the complement. Just if the students cannot infer the rule. That's stage 4. And stage 5 and 6 for that method is that students need to create the dialogue in groups, in pairs, and stage 6 is to role play that. This is for an example of a role play, but instead of a role play, I can have students write a paragraph. For example, if the topic were not hobbies, but if the topic was have students tell an anecdote, I can have them for the contest or the example. I can show the students a written paragraph about an anecdote. Yes. So in the stage 3, I need to help the students understand the information presented in the example. In stage 4, I will have sentences taken from that paragraph so they fill the gaps. And in stage 5, I will have the students write their own anecdote, and then share it with their classmates, like read it in front of the class, or have students get in groups and listen to their classmates reading the groups of three. And so students will listen to three different anecdotes. So the production for task-based learning is not always a presentation or a role play. It can be something they write, it can be something they talk, or I mean they can be something they need to speak in order to show what they learned. If you remember last week, we had an example about a task related to food likes and dislikes. So that was a class for children, 8, 9 year old children, and the sequence was always about the same. So students will watch a video about a boy having a conversation at home about the food he liked. If he liked a sandwich, and then he created a new one. Stage two, in stage two, the students practice that vocabulary by asking, using some pictures and try to drill the question, do you like, yes I do, or no I don't, right? In stage three, students practice those questions orally. In stage four, students fill the gaps. In stage five, students work in pairs to create their own conversation. In stage six, students presented the conversation. So if we have just a good example, what we do during the lesson is to little by little help the students to understand that example till they are able to do something similar. So again, um, explanations are the last thing that teachers do in task base. While in presentation, practice, production, the teacher explains the whole lesson. And at the end, the students also have a production, but there are more explanations. And there are not 6 stages. This is a sequence, but it's not a method because it's not telling us the number of stages that it has. Is that clear?
Yes, teacher. Thank you.
Yes, teacher.
Yes, teacher. Thank you.
Okay.
That answer.
So let's move to project base because that's the topic that you studied last week. And I would like you to tell me what you remember you watched in the videos about the recommendations or pieces of advice uh, on how to implement a project in a class. So
Well,
Mayra,
first,
Mayra?
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mayra, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I would like to talk about the video related to first grade project because when I saw it, I was like very surprised because of the topic of the project. Because I felt like it was too, well, I was wondering what is it that the teacher was going to get from that question. But it was very interesting to find out the way she could practice some math topics and also recycling and very simple task or a very simple question. So it gave me the idea to think of or a lot of materials or a lot of maybe it's just a matter of finding the right question with the students and just trying to solve the question using the different subjects and the different material we have at hand. So I felt it was like a very good example on how to methodology, because I really believe it's very practical, and like teachers and parents said, it is a way to build knowledge in a way students won't forget. So I think it was a very nice video to watch.
Okay, thank you, Mayra, for your participation. Somebody else?
Me, teacher.
Paola.
Teacher. Okay. The video was fantastic because you can, with the project, you can mix all the, for example, science, social, math, English, Spanish, yes, all the I forget in English. So it's important, and it's a project, it's activity that the students understand better the different topics in different way. No, it's that always you teach, for example, addition, or for example, grammar in the same way. No, it's different and it's work together in group, and was nice because the father said that the kids understand better the topics. For
Paola,
instance,
do you
yes.
remember one example of a project that was about drawing graphs? Drawing a,
Yes, for example, the kids in fourth grades, I think, they make a cardboard with the graphics about a question for the student and the teacher. I don't remember about the party, something like that. So the student and the project is to make a graph to the according to the questions.
exactly. So the students practice asking questions, but also using the information they gather to
Yeah.
present the results using a graph, a
The
bar,
others,
actually.
yes, the other students is make a project with a computer. Also is a question or something like that, I don't remember, that use the computer and make, for example, PowerPoint presentation. So that was nice because you mix all the social, math, art, everything. So it's nice to teach with project.
Okay. Somebody else?
Luis Felipe, teacher.
Luis.
Okay, what I learned from those videos, okay, one of the questions says that what skills can students develop when working on projects in classrooms? Okay, it's important that they have to start doing research and to work in groups. They can check different formats and how to collect data, and it allows them to work with their hands and develop the new skills that they need to develop in a different way. What I mean is that students can learn to create with their own hands different, like for example, like models of, for example, talking about a flat, my flat, and the students learn to create that, but at the same time they learn how to create, to find conclusions, to maintain the research desire that they need to continue with this project. They learn how to investigate, how to present clear results, and to find conclusions to show to other people, different people that they usually are with, and they acquire better communication skills. So I am starting trying to fix one of these classes because this week I had exams, so it could not be possible. So it's a good way for to engage students into the learning class, into the English learning classes.
Okay. What about the
Teacher,
topics?
teacher, sorry. I remember that the projects must be based on real life problems. The student need to solve by researching and doing different tasks. Yes,
Yes, you're right.
the projects are based on real life problems, and this allows that the student um, will the different skill. For example, organization and self assessments or self evaluation, and the to be a leadership, and to have the critical thinking.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. So let's take the example that Catalina mentioned at the beginning of the encounter. She mentioned the idea of having the students work on the topic of recycling. So we could have students, for example, answer the question of how to promote more recycling at school. Students could work in groups to answer the question, so they need to research about recycling. They need to divide or assign different roles to each member of the group. So one student could be in charge of looking for information. Other students will be in charge to write the information in the computer. Other
Um,
students could be in charge of looking for visual aids, etc. So they need to, that's why they work on other skills, as Luis mentioned, uh, like they need also um, to make decisions about the task they want to carry out. It's not always the teacher telling them what to do, but they will have to make the decision on what they want to do in their groups.
um,
Uh,
yes.
okay, so what we can do to help them is to create an agenda. So we'll tell them in class one, the students will create their groups and what else? And start researching. In class two, students will show,
Depende del level, teacher.
sorry, Anna?
It depends the level, yeah?
It depends on their level, yes.
Yeah.
So sometimes the teacher is the one who proposes the topic
Yeah.
based on what she knows or he knows about students' level and interest. But other times, students can be in charge of choosing the topic, what they are
Yes.
interested in researching about, what they want to present at the end. So, well, in class two, students will show their progress to the teacher. It's not like as a teacher, I will tell the students, okay, you will meet at 9, you will talk to 4 more people, you will choose a topic, and I won't be there. So I need to be there in all the classes, guiding the students and answering their questions. Hmm? That's my role. So I will be a guide, a tutor. Okay, so in class two, students can show their progress on their research. In class number 3, students might think about how to present the results to the whole class. Sorry. Okay, so what I can do as a teacher is to provide them with an agenda. So it won't take them the whole semester or the whole year to present the project results. But I will push them a little bit so they have to do the research in a certain period of time. They will need to use dictionaries. They will ask you a lot of questions about vocabulary. They will for sure speak in Spanish, but you will try them to try their best to use English. And sometimes the students are very lazy, so if they are working in groups because they know their classmates speak Spanish, so they start using the mother tongue. So you need to push them to use English. But well, the idea is that with these projects, students have more, they have to participate actively in the construction of the project, in the development of the class. The teacher is not the one who plans the whole stages and tells the students what to do all the time. But they make a lot of decisions. They need to have a role in the group. It's not like one person in the group will do everything and the others will just uh, start talking about something different. But if they have the rules and the role, they will work. And at the end, what happens in PBL is that the students need to work on assessment. They need to assess the project, themselves, and the teacher. The whole process and all the people implied in the process. So sometimes we can use rubrics. So the rubrics will have a criteria about the roles. So each student was responsible to work on the role assigned or work on the role chosen. All the students participated actively, or the students took into account the amount of time provided to present the progress of their work. So the criteria could be time, the criteria could be responsibility, and could be also progress, the results, and also the content or the how well the question posed at the beginning was answered. If the question was what other or what creative ways can be implemented at school to promote more the recycling in the school. So how creative was each one of the solutions proposed? It could be other criteria. And what you will find in the books is that project-based don't show you stages. Don't say, number one, do this, number two, do this, because that's a method. When you find that, is called a method. And project-based is an approach to teach, and learn. So you will have like some recommendations, like start with a driving question. Continue with having the students get in groups. Then the recommendation is to have students start researching, and after that you can ask your students show you the progress. right? But it is not like in every book you will find like the same pieces of advice, because as I'm telling you, that's not a method, but an approach. Do you guys remember something else about projects?
Teacher, I have a question.
Claudia.
What is the importance of the evaluation in the PBL approach?
It's important because it's a way for students to become aware of what they did, if it worked or if it didn't, if they can improve next time on any of the stages of the project. That is, for example, in the criteria that I mentioned before, I didn't say anything about the use of grammar or the use of vocabulary. It could be there in the rubric, but it could be more important if students develop those research skills and those communicative skills. It could be more important that than the use of accurate grammar. They were able to use sentences in English without any mistake. What you will find, those of you who have been teaching for some years, you have noticed that students at the beginning, they make lots of mistakes, although you explain over and over. Yes, and with the time, they will monitor their speaking and they will make less mistakes. So there is no point of having the students, beginners, become accurate at the beginning, because it's not possible. It's just like when it happens with everything. When you start doing something, you make mistakes, and with a lot of practice, you improve, and then you become perfect on something that you do. Same happens in the language. But other important thing in when we learn a language is that we don't we are not risky to produce. We cannot become good speakers. So we become good writers, we become good readers, good listeners. But if we don't practice speaking, we cannot produce orally in a good way. So that's also important. If we make our students understand that other things, more than being accurate, are important, so they will be more risky. But if I assess them with a grammar test, with a filling the gaps test, they will learn that they need to become accurate in order to pass the test and in order to be promoted to the next course. That's why assessment in that case is important, so they realize that being responsible, developing research skills, know how to work in groups is very important in projects, and that using English is also important, but is not the only thing they need to develop. Okay, do you guys remember? Okay, do you guys remember other thing about projects?
Teacher, the one you were talking at the beginning about the presentation, practice, and production.
Yes.
It's like, can you give me again another example about that one? Because I don't have it very clear. Like, I know, for example, that you have to do like a warm up. Like, let's say if I show a small video or something about any subject, is that possible?
Sure. I'm gonna give you an example. So let's say that the topic the students need to study based on the book or on the textbook they use is present simple. And the vocabulary they have to study according to the book is daily routines. So I start the class by using flashcards about actions related to daily routines. Then I have students repeat after me the pronunciation of each word. Then I have the students practice that vocabulary. For example, by labeling some pictures. Or working on filling the gaps of sentences. Then I have students, let's say, listen to a person talking about daily routines. Then I have some listening comprehension exercises. And then I have students in the production write a short paragraph about their daily routines. Okay, so there is a production, there is a practice and a presentation about the same topic, that the information was presented without no context. Here I don't have an example of how to write about daily routines. And here I have like some exercises to practice vocabulary. Usually what teachers do is that here during the practice, students make teachers make explanations, explains the structure of affirmative sentences, in present simple. Yes, so there are a lot of grammar exercises about that. And then I have students write the paragraph. But there is not an example previous to this exercise. And there are a lot of explanations from the teacher. So the students listen all the time, listen and repeat, fill the gaps, and here they produce. But I'm not asking the students to work on any other ability, like try to analyze something or summarize something or let's say classify something. Yes, I'm asking the students to understand and identify, which are very basic skills. I'm telling them, understand that this picture represents get up, and this one represents go to bed. Identify that, identify the pronunciation, repeat. And then here I'm telling them, try to create something. But of course they are gonna make mistakes because if more mistakes, because if I don't show them uh, if I don't show them like an example or how the sentences can be linked, so they are gonna produce maybe sentences in isolation if maybe they do that. The other method, the TBL, is more structured in the sense that gives the students more uh, scaffolding on what they have to do, and it's more from the example, not from vocabulary, but from the example that the class is built. Is there any question about this?
No, now it's clear, teacher. Thank you.
Okay. Right, let's go back to projects. Do you guys remember other thing about projects?
I remember, teacher, that we, as teachers, we are only facilitators or uh, helpers, or we guide the students to do their activities.
Exactly. So we need to guide students, and when we are facilitators, is because we tell them you can redefine information in this or in this place or in this place, or use this resource, use this dictionary, use this book, etc. So as you mentioned, the role of the teacher is to be a facilitator, a tutor, or a guide. Mhm. Good. Any other thing that you remember?
Yes, I remember that the teacher has the goals, the clear goals.
That's very important.
Mhm.
So one of the recommendations is to clearly set the goals of the project. So set the goal of the or the objectives. Okay, any other thing?
Teacher, I remember also in the video that, well, there are two ways to work on the project. One is if the students are make the proposal of the question, and another one is that the teacher can be the one who choose the topic. And also, well, he said that it will be important to divide the project in more or less 10 sessions. And also, he said that it was very important. It was in the video in Spanish where he was explaining like how to get into the project-based learning. And he said that it would be very important to work on the group dynamics. I don't know if we could say that in English too, because he said that collaborative work is very important during project-based learning. So it is important to start working in small groups first so that students feel comfortable about working in groups so that later they can work as a big team solving the main question.
Right. So they need to discuss in groups how they are going to answer the question, what they think they can do first, second, and third, etc. Very good. Okay, I just want to finish by showing you an example of of a project a teacher in Colombia carried out with a group of 4th graders. The teacher used a platform to communicate with students in India. And that platform was provided by the British Council. She works for public school in Colombia. Her name is Sandra Dolores Ruiz Niño. She worked with fourth graders, and the name of the project was From Our Window. So as I told you, as I mentioned, the teacher used a platform to have students communicate with students in India. The British Council provided the platform. And the project was that students worked in groups to decide on the information they wanted to share with Indian students about Colombia. So what they wanted those children learned about our country. So it implied to write letters, to make a book photos, to decide on the aspects of the country they wanted to present. And at the end, they used the platform to have a video conference with the Indian students to present all the information. So they use a computer, they exchange poems and the photos and their presentations. So, and all that, for all that, they worked in groups. They had to make decisions about how to carry out that task or that project in order to present the information at the end. And after that project, the teacher decided to carry out other projects with different students. She worked on that project in 2013, and in 2014 she had one about Fan and Fiesta, which was an exchange of different celebrations in both countries. And in 2015, she worked on a project about flora and fauna. So again, the students chose the different animals that were in our country, and the opposite, the Indian students also chose some animals and flora that were typical from the regions. They uh, created some songs, poems, albums, photographs, letters, presentations, and they used the internet to exchange the information. So it's like for you to have some ideas that had been implemented in public schools with fourth graders. This one for about flora and fauna was for first graders, for example, and Fun and Fiesta was for fifth and sixth graders. But as some of you mentioned at the beginning, projects imply not only the use of English, but maths, or social studies, or science. So questions about this?
No, teacher.
Teacher, I have a question.
Please.
Okay, because we are focusing on project-based learning, task-based learning, and the other one that we study is sequence and
Presentation,
okay.
production.
Yes, yes. Presentation, practice, and production. So, what would you recommend us to work with? You know, because it's very important to learn about this. And I have been thinking how to improve my English classes with students because I have different levels in the same class. I told you that I try to start with grammar and audiolingual methods. So it is working, but I want to improve my classes, you know.
I will suggest.
So what would you recommend?
I will suggest that you try one project with one group, and after
grammar and translate.
After trying with one group, you will see what works, what needs to be improved, and so that you could do the same with the other groups if you have that chance. I mean, if you sometimes we work with 4 places, that have a curriculum and a syllabus, and we cannot change that. Yes. So, for example, the syllabus of a school could be you need to work on units 1 and 2 for the first 3 weeks of the course. So, in that case, working with projects will be a little bit difficult. But even in those contexts, if you have one project per year, for example, just to experience and then show to the coordinator that that works, that would be great, because in a way we need to do something to change the traditional way we are teaching that is not working well. Our students don't speak, our students don't understand what they read. So it's because we are not changing the way we teach, and that needs to be uh, modified.
Okay, I really appreciate that because I really okay. The opportunity that we have is that we can take advantage of what you are teaching us, because I am not tied to a specific curriculum at this moment. We are trying to change, to improve, and to start with a no bilingual. Okay, that the school be bilingual school, but to how do you say, more hours of English, you know,
To increase.
Yes, sorry, increase the hours of English. We have 9 hours, so I have to take advantage of that time. And the problem is that I told you is that in the same course, in the same grade, I have 2 different levels, you know. And it's my question, see if you can help me a little bit more. In the
Sure.
same course, I have 2 groups.
So you could think about different projects, and
Okay.
think about something easy for those who don't have a lot of English, and something more difficult for those students who know a little bit more.
Yeah.
So,
In the same group.
example, a project for students that know very little about English could be create a blog, let's say. So have to have them use the computer in order to introduce yourself. So the idea of introducing themselves is related to very basic information about English. So my name is, my address is, I like this, I dislike this, I usually do this. And that's very basic. It's in a blog, they can exchange information with others and have classmates like write questions in the blog and answer questions about just basic um, basic topic. Yeah. Now something more difficult. Students that know a little bit more could have could create a PowerPoint presentation to answer a question about um, let's say that is a basic level. So it could be, what do you think? Like, let's talk about the graph that was used in one of the videos that you watched. So create a PowerPoint presentation in which you show a graph with the results of your classmates' favorite hobbies. Yes, so in that way, students need to use also present simple, but this time they need to ask questions to their classmates, and they need to use those answers to use Excel, create a graph, and put it in a PowerPoint and show the results.
Okay, thank you, teacher. And the last question is if you are going to upload the class, and if you upload, and where can I find that, because I couldn't find the first one.
And let me check, because maybe I forgot to upload it.
Okay, and for this class, the same, please, if you can upload.
Sure.
It's very important for us. Thank you very much, teacher.
Okay. Any other question, comment before we finish?
Teacher, can I ask you a question about the work one that we have for Sunday?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so we are doing well, we already saw the movie with our group, but the question is if we want to answer and we want like to quote, can we quote in the Spanish because the movie is in Spanish?
No, in English.
Or do we need to translate the part?
Well, quote in Spanish if you want. I mean, but the idea is the question about the movie is like, what are the traditional ways of teaching and learning that are related
Different.
to traditional,
Yeah, it's to make a list.
like to make a list. Yeah. So
yes, but we want to do like a small like intro to then put the list that we already had a look on the movie. So it's just a question if we could quote a part of the movie.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
It's that slight introduction of your list. Okay.
Yes. Okay, thank you, teacher.
All right. Any other question before we finish?
I have a question. Why your classes aren't online to watch it again?
Because probably I forgot to upload it. Let me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to upload the first one and the
second one.
No, and
this one.
the presentation. Well, no, the lesson plan. I will do that tonight. I promise.
Or tomorrow. No, just we are not in such a hurry.
For example, in my case, and I think that my classmates too, we want to watch again and
no, it's mandatory for me to upload it. So
and study some parts that wasn't clear, or maybe we lose some words or something like that. And I was looking for the last class and I didn't find it.
You didn't find it, yeah. Yes, I will do that because it's mandatory for me, and I understand the reasons, as you mentioned. Some of you want to review, or some of you cannot join the encounter once, so you check the video. So I promise I will do that. I need to.
Thank you very much, teacher.
Thank you, teacher.
Okay. Any other question?
No, teacher, everything's clear. Thank you.
Yes, teacher. Okay, good. Well, have a good night, everybody.
You too,
Good
teacher.
night,
God
teacher.
bless you.
Thank you,
Thank
teacher.
you. God
Thank you,
bless
teacher. You too.
all of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye, classmates and teacher.
Bye.
Bye.